So the goal for the 2020 season for me here in Minnesota, I didn't really have any incredible bucks to hunt, so I was kind of just looking for something mature, that 4 or 5 plus range. We had the whitetails from scratch property, all that habitat management going on, and we were kind of looking at that property, and it didn't seem like it had a lot of big shooters on it yet this year. So just trying to give that property a little bit of a break and shifted my focus to a property I got a lot of experience with. Shot some really nice bucks on, and typically there are some bucks that can hit that 4, 5, 6-year-old range, and just trying to look for something mature, and so I'm shifting my focus over to a different property. So this is a permission-based property, just a knock-on door, a friend of ours, and I got a lot of experience here, so I kind of know how the deer use the property, and it's taken quite a while to actually figure that out. There's a lot of human interaction in here. There's a trail system that's mowed, and typically neighbors walk their dogs, or the landowners go on hikes or ride around on the ATVs and stuff, so it makes the hunting aspect a little bit more tricky. So this area is a pretty cool spot. There's a lot of developments, houses around the area, not necessarily on the property, so the deer bed by these houses and in some thick pockets around, and they all funnel through this one main open field, this goldenrod field that I sit over top of watching. And the deer actually bed out in there, which makes it really tough to hunt sometimes. From a survival standpoint, it makes perfect sense why they're out there, but it makes it really tricky because they can pretty much bed anywhere. So this spot really, it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. There's a patch of trees, basically surrounded by fields and some brushy, shrubby stuff, and there's just not a lot of options. So when it comes to scent control and wind direction, you just have to really be on top of it with the phase system, make sure your boots are extremely clean as you walk in, and deer can be on pretty much any side of you at any time, so scent control is huge hunting this spot. So typically this spot has a food plot, a green field that kind of leads into the ag back behind me on the neighbors. A couple years ago I shot a buck called Double Split. You can see exactly what it should look like typically when we plant a food plot here. Now this season in 2020, the tiller broke, so we didn't have access to work that ground and put the seed down. So basically sitting over a dirt field right now, but it's still in a pretty good transition, a pretty good funnel back into the food source. It's still a good spot, and we're just gonna hope for the best. So this season there's basically 2 bucks that are using the area right now. And there's a big 10, and then there's a big, nice, clean 8. Both deer are 4.5 years old, a lot of history with the deer. Filmed them all season last year. They grew substantially, especially the 10-pointer. And those are kind of the 2 bucks on the list right now that are mature enough to harvest and hunt out here. So the season's approaching. We're 4 days out, and I'm out checking trail cameras one last time, trying to see what's going on. And I look over, and the 10-pointer's, in the goldenrod, bedded down. He stands up, and he's looking right at me. And this really shows the importance of wireless cameras. I didn't have any wireless cameras on this property. 4 days before the season, you need that intel, but like what happened here, I bumped the deer, and that just is the importance of these wireless cameras, and moving into next season, it's gonna be a big part of our arsenal. So September 28th, it's kind of one of those days we wait for. Cold front comes through, the temps are dropping, high wind speeds that are gonna slow down at night, and just this perfect condition with the high pressure. Got a nice cold front there, just rolled in, a little bit of rain, cloud cover. So I slip in, 2 bucks I'm after, the big 8 and the big 10. Time rolls on, see some does, see some young bucks, and then all of a sudden the sun goes down and prime time's here, and the bucks start coming right out of that sumac patch. And this is what we wait for all year. 4 bucks basically just appear out of this brush. 2 2-year-olds, a 3-year-old, and the big 8. So it's late September. These bucks are still in their bachelor group. They're starting to get worked up a little bit, but it's just not quite time to be aggressive with the calling. Plus, I have the food behind me. They're coming from the bedding, and it's just a perfect transition. I'm just gonna let it play out. So the bucks kind of break up and all the smaller deer actually head over to my left, and the big one's still on the trail kind of coming my direction. I think it's just a matter of time before he walks this trail. You can see the big cut trail through the grass. He's gonna come right to about 30 yards. I gotta prep for the shot, and I think it's about to happen. And he's heading to that food source. I'm getting ready, and he lifts his head and he starts looking around. And sure enough, I'm on this permission property, a lot of traffic, and somebody's walking trails over to my right and bumps him right out of the area. So a few days have passed. I'm thinking this buck's probably not going to daylight the next day or even a couple days after, but give him 3-4 days, let things kind of calm down. We got another cold front coming in, and it feels like it's another good window to jump in here and see if we can get them on their feet during daylight. And it's a pretty slow hunt for the most part. And then later on in the evening, Big Ape shows up in the exact same spot from the other night. And I'm thinking, oh, there he is again, he's coming out. And I start to look, and things just kind of don't seem right. I'm pulling up the binoculars, zooming in with the camera, trying to focus, and I don't think it's the same buck, but I have no clue who this deer is. And I'm looking at his body. He's got a big, thick chest, Roman nose, big eyes, big forehead, just looks mature. And there comes a point where he kind of clears all the brush and he stops on the trail that I walked in on. Another key aspect of scent control is your ground scent. So he's not gonna smell me on this trail. I know I'm perfectly clean, but this is a perfect opportunity where I can see his whole body. I shift the camera and I pretty much center him up, and then I get my binoculars out. And I'm looking at him, and my mind's starting to shift into, yes, this is a shooter. He's mature. Mature bucks move slow. They take in everything. They look at other deer for signals. They're smelling a lot. They're trying to figure out if there's danger. And he's just sitting there for a long time. I'm trying to think, what can I do to pull him my way? There's maybe one small chance I could call him in on this trail and pull him through. But for the most part, he's heading back to that egg, and he's got his eyes locked on it. But I grab my extinguisher, and I'm just about to hit a grunt. And the deer from back in the ag field just explode out from there. And I don't know if it's, a coyote, another person walking around. I don't know what's going on, but all the deer come running from behind me, and now they're heading back to the bedding. And in some ways, it's kind of a disappointment. Again, like, what do I got to do here to get an opportunity at this deer? It's an area that just keeps getting bumped around. But in some ways, now there's another opportunity that presents itself, because he now doesn't want to use that access to my left over the egg. Maybe he's going to circle back to my right, give me that shot I've been looking for. So, he's out there, he's hanging out. Now there's a 2-year-old buck next to him. And this is a big thing, because now I have really good comparison to see how big this deer is. So they're standing right next to each other. They're walking around. You can just see the head is, 30%, 40% bigger than this 2-year-old buck. He's taller. Now you can really see the mass on that dark rack. And it tells me for sure, mature buck, okay, mindset's changed. Let's get ready, because I'm gonna shoot this buck. So this buck runs out there. I can just tell right away, perfect hit, and he's down within seconds. October 2nd. Boom. Big mature 8-point down. I think he's a 4-year-old buck. I was looking at his rack real close. He's got a lot of mass. And came into 20 yards, put a double lung shot on him. He's down right there in the field. Feels good to tag out. There was a big 10-pointer I was after, but
That's a brand new buck that just showed up, and he's got nice mass. Not a real high scoring deer, but super happy with that.
You know, it's kind of crazy. It's October 2nd. It's early in the year, and we only get one tag in Minnesota, and I'm done. So the feeling is crazy. It's actually the most adrenaline I've had shooting a buck in probably 10 years. And I think a big factor to that is I didn't know who this deer was. So there was a lot of stuff racing through my mind. It happened slow. You know, when things take time to progress, for some reason I get just really worked up and that adrenaline really starts pumping and I get buck fever really. When things happen fast, I can just kind of react. But, you know, this one happened slow. The most excited I've been in honestly probably 10 years after shooting a deer. And it's kind of crazy when, you know, it's by no means my biggest buck ever, but just that whole encounter and seeing the mature buck and changing and making a decision to shoot him and putting a perfect shot on him and, you know, everything just kind of coming together perfect. I just couldn't be happier. It was just an awesome feeling and couldn't wait to just go get my hands on the buck. So some of the keys to this hunt, really, you know, the experience on this property and all the intel. I've been watching this property throughout the summer and scouting it, putting trail cameras out, collecting all that information, setting it up, trying to plant food plots, just trying to get this property set up for these situations and really taking advantage of it early in the season when deer are in bachelor groups, on patterns, and that's a great time to get in, get the job done when deer are on their pattern, and that was a huge key to success here. So I think when it comes to a high pressure property like this with a lot of human interaction, a couple big things is try to figure out, is there a pattern to the people on the property? You know, when are they typically using the trails? How are they using the trails? And how are deer kind of reacting to that? Another thing is use it to your advantage. You know, if they have mowed trails or if they're walking on trails that you can use and pretend that you're not a hunter, because deer, I feel, can tell the difference between when they're being hunted and when people are just walking around on the property. So drive your truck out in the field if that's what other people are doing. You know, take an ATV if that's what other people are doing, but, you know, just kind of adapt to those things. Try to figure out what the deer's perception is of other people and then kind of use that to your advantage when you're actually hunting. Lastly, one crucial aspect of this hunt is just being very comfortable with your gear, your scent control system, your calling systems, all things like that. So when the moment of truth comes, you know, it's a huge deal on finally closing the deal.